Okay, this is Lesson 1, Properties of Multiplication. Your academic vocabulary is commutative property of multiplication and associative property of multiplication. I'm going to want you to write those definitions on page 2. Let's go ahead and look at problem number 1. It says this multiplication problem is read as 2 times 8. This is a basic multiplication fact. If the multiplication fact is not memorized, you're going to count 2 times by 8. What is the product of 2 times 8? Well, of course, that's 16, so you're just going to put 16 inside the line. Look at problem 3a. The problem is 4 times 3, which means 4 groups of 3. How many total circles are in the 4 groups of 3 circles? Or how many total circles are in the 4 group? Yeah, 3 circles, which of course is 12, so your answer is 12. For 3b, the problem is 3 times 4 means 3 groups of 4. How many total circles are in 3 groups of 4 circles? Of course, 12 also. Notice that 3 times 4 has the same factors as 4 times 3, but the factors are written in a different order. Your commutative property of multiplication, the definition is 2 factors can be multiplied in any order and the product will be the same. In other words, 1 times 2 is the same answer as 2 times 1. They both equal 2. That's commutative property of multiplication. Then you have your associative property of multiplication. That means that 3 factors can be grouped in different ways, and the product will be the same. In other words, you could have 1 times 2 times 3, maybe have parentheses that way, equaling 6. Or you could have 1 times 2 times 3, and maybe put parentheses over here, and they would still equal 6. Or there's some room on the bottom. Number 5 says, what property can be used to write 3 times 6 another way? That's your commutative property of multiplication. What does the commutative property of multiplication state? That 2 factors can be multiplied in any order, and the product will be the same. What is another way to write 3 times 6? Well, you can write it 6 times 3. What is the product of 3 times 6? 18. What is the product of 6 times 3? Also 18. And you can just abbreviate the commutative property of multiplication with CPM. Number 7, they want us to name the properties shown and use the property to find the missing numbers. Notice before you get to number 7, there's a Math Live. Anytime you see that symbol, you want to work on that before you do anything else. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and go to your VMath Live website, log in, and go to lesson 1 so that you can practice it. Once you're finished, then you can come back and work on your workbook again. Okay, for number 7, says name the properties shown, use the property to find the missing numbers. You have 5 times 6 equals 6 times 5, which equals 30. The property shown is your commutative property of multiplication. Number 9, you have 7 times 8 equals 8 times 7, which of course is also your commutative property of multiplication. Number 11, you have 3 times 2 times 5 equals 3 times 2 times 5, but instead you have your parentheses around the 2 and the 5, and that's your associative property multiplication. Oops, that should be a P. Number 13 is just asking you to find each product, so just multiply. 4 times 7 is 28, and 2 times 6 is 12. Number 17 says Martha was given the following problem, 2 times 5 times 3. Write 2 ways that she can group the numbers to find the same product, and then name the property used to regroup the factors. Well, you can put the parentheses around the 2 times 5. Or you can put the parentheses around the 5 times 3. And the property that states you can do that is your associative multiplication property. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Associative property of multiplication. Number 19 says Chad planted his garden in 8 rows with 2 plants in each row. Using the commutative property of multiplication, what is another way he could plant his garden and still have the same number of plants? Well, instead of having 8 rows, you can have 2 rows, and instead of having 2 plants in each row, you can have 8 plants in each row. Okay, let's go ahead and do the checkup on page 4. It says if 9 times 7 is 63, then 7 times 9 is what? It's also 63, so your answer would be C. Number 3 says explain what property can be used for the multiplication problem in problem 1. Well, the property that states that you can write 9 times 7 or 7 times 9 and still get the same answer is your commutative property of multiplication. Okay, now that you're finished with lesson 1, you're going to go to the extra practice, which is on page 53 in the back of your workbook. Once you've finished page 53, 1 through 8, then I want you to bring it to me so we can check it. And then you'll move on to lesson 2.